Hey, what's up everybody, and welcome back to another episode of News Dose, where I give you all the latest gaming news, and Microsoft is taking a new approach in acquiring Bethesda games. In the past, Xbox acquisitions fell directly under the Xbox Game Studios label, but ZeniMax Bethesda is being treated just a little bit different. However, everything seems to be going smoothly, so we're going to look into all of that later in the video. Also, the PS5 might be facing a class action lawsuit for their most recent controller. Several times on this channel, I have praised the Dualsense controller for its new technology, and I will stand behind that, but there are some concerns as well, and Sony could be facing some trouble with their most recent controller. So stick around for that as well, but first, we need to talk about Nintendo. Nintendo's first big exclusive title for 2021, Mario Bowser's Fury, releases in just a couple days on February 12th. If you've already played the original on the Wii U, you probably already know this is a fantastic game, and now that it comes with extra content, this will without a doubt be the definitive version. From what I've seen and heard, the addition of Bowser's Fury will be worth a rebuy for a lot of people. It's a nice overall addition and adds a lot to the game, being a completely new game mode with the quality you would expect coming from the Mario franchise. Reviews are rolling out now though, and as of this recording, Bowser's Fury sits at a 90 overall score on Metacritic, which adds to an already superb library of Nintendo Switch games. This will make the 6th 90+ game on the Switch published by Nintendo themselves. This just continues to show just how good of a device the Switch truly is, but fans are kind of freaking out over these Bowser Fury reviews, or in specific the IGN review. And the reason for this is because IGN reviewed the original a 96 back in 2013, but with Bowser's Fury they gave it a lukewarm 7 out of 10. That is quite a big difference, especially considering Bowser's Fury appears to be a better overall game. Here's the thing though, and you do need to keep this in mind when you see reviews come from different news outlets, it's a different person reviewing the game. For that matter, reviews at the end of the day is just an opinion, so don't focus too much on different review scores, but rather try to find somebody that you trust and then listen to their reviews instead. I've kind of talked about this before, there have been plenty of games that's had exceptional reviews that I just don't like, and then there's also been games that reviewed poorly that I really liked. It's all opinions at the end of the day, and these scores, while can be very helpful, aren't necessarily the be-all, end-all. I mean, even with IGN giving Bowser's Fury a 7, it still managed to receive a 90 overall score on Metacritic, which is truly exceptional. I don't know about you, but I'm definitely excited to play this game in a few days, and I hope you are as well. Speaking of Nintendo though, they've officially revealed their Nintendo Switch Online lineup for the month of February, and yeah, this is a strange lineup to say the least. I've seen a lot of disappointed fans today regarding this announcement, and let's take a look as to why. So this lineup includes 4 different games: Doomsday Warrior, Prehistoric Man, Psycho Dream, and Fire and Ice. And from the names alone, you may not exactly know what these games are, and well, I don't either. I do consider myself to be pretty knowledgeable about games, and I didn't know what any of these games were. Now that doesn't exactly mean that these are bad games. They might end up really surprising me. I do look at Doomsday Warrior, which is some kind of fighting game, and I think it looks interesting. I will give that one a try, and then there's also Prehistoric Man, which looks, it looks okay. It's like a standard 2D platformer, so I remain optimistic when it comes to these games, but the problem that I think most people have with Nintendo Switch Online is their very odd lineup of games. When Nintendo has games like Earthbound and Mario RPG that still isn't on Nintendo Switch Online, and then you add games like this, it just doesn't sit well with a lot of people. I would think that they would want to add those games in first, and Nintendo has brought them the Virtual Console in the very recent past for other consoles, just not for the Switch. I don't know, I just don't understand the thought process of excluding some of their more popular games for these obscure titles. I would think those would come later on, but, Nintendo does Nintendo things. I love Nintendo and everything, but they just do what they want. Moving on, Epic Games announced some new technology today that is both very impressive and exciting. So check this out. The video you're seeing here is their newest Unreal Engine character creator by the name of MetaHuman. Yeah, these look extremely realistic, but what's cool about this is that these characters can be created within minutes compared to the usual weeks or even months that developers take to create their own characters. This will save a ton of time for developers, all while still looking very impressive. It goes beyond just that though. The hair in specific is using their strand-based hair system, and you can even do mocap by using Unreal Engine's Live Link Face iOS app. These are incredibly useful features for developers, and for fans this means better overall looking games. Now, it's all interesting in theory, so now we'll have to wait and see how all this plays out in real time. That's where the real challenge will be, but because it's Epic Games, they usually do a good job with their engine, so I do have some confidence that this will have some success. This could end up being a big thing, especially for independent games. Something I've been seeing in the last few years is the rise of AA games such as Hellblade, A Plague's Tale, and Greedfall, and I think this character creator tool could benefit developers making games like that. You can make some serious realistic characters without a lot of resources using this, so we could start to see these indie games make a big jump in the near future. This is pretty incredible stuff and definitely beneficial to the developer. Now also, we gotta talk about this Sony class action lawsuit, and this all revolves around the PS5 Dualsense controller. You all know I like this controller, and much of the community has been very impressed by its new technology. It really does feel fantastic, especially in Astra's Playroom. Now to be fair, I haven't played another game where it has been that impressive yet, but I do think developers will get better at that in the future. Unfortunately though, there has been several reports since the launch of the PS5 for faulty controllers. In the last couple of months, I've been hearing some complaints about broken adaptive triggers where basically the spring inside the controller gets dislodged. This in return will make that trigger feel loose when pressed. I still don't necessarily know how widespread that situation is yet, but it looks like another problem has arisen, and that's stick drift. As we all know, Nintendo has been battling the same problem for the last couple years with the Switch, and it looks like the DualSense controller could be the next victim of stick drift. Now, we still need to find out more though, because a United States law firm is investigating the issue and whether or not to pursue a class action lawsuit against Sony. It's still not clear if this is a widespread issue or if it's a little bit more rare. So far, they have set up a questionnaire asking PS5 owners to report issues of stick drift if they run into it. If you don't know what stick drift is though, it's pretty easy to find out if you have it. Just turn on a game and don't touch your controller. If your character moves around, then, well, you have stick drift. I did unfortunately have that problem on the Switch along with several other people, but so far I've had no issue with the PS5. I will be curious to hear if there is a case when it comes to the DualSense though. It's still very early in the generation, so this could be nothing, or more and more people could end up being affected by this as they use their PS5 for an extended amount of time. I think I had the Switch for nearly 3 years before I ended up getting stick drift myself. I guess we'll kind of have to wait and see what happens with this investigation for the DualSense. Hopefully it's not a widespread problem, but if it is, we'll have to hear Sony's response on the matter. I imagine they'll take a similar approach to what Nintendo was doing and just repair the controller free of cost. I mean, it's not an ideal situation, but I don't think it's really a deal breaker either. The Switch is still a great device, and I personally think the PS5 DualSense is still an excellent controller. Longevity and durability is still a concern, but again, hopefully this isn't a widespread issue. If you do have a similar issue with your controller though, let me know in the comments below. Also, we got an update for that big Xbox Bethesda acquisition. Of course, they announced this acquisition late last year, but the acquisition technically is still not complete. This is actually the main reason we still don't have a definitive answer on whether or not Bethesda games will be exclusive to Xbox or not, because yes, it is illegal to announce something like that until the acquisition is complete. Well, that acquisition is close to closing and could be finalized as early as February 15th, though it could go as far as March 5th. So we might get some answers soon, but there are some other immediate questions. What's happening right now is that the European Union is in the process of deciding whether or not to allow this merger. If they find any antitrust regulation with the merger, they can decline Microsoft from an acquisition. However, everything does seem to be going smooth right now. In a new statement, it shows, on preliminary examination, the Commission finds that the notified transaction could fall within the scope of the merger regulation. However, it notes that the final decision on this point is reserved. So as of this video, everything seems to be going as planned with no problems with the merger. Now that could change, but I would expect this to be finalized in the coming weeks without any issue, and then we'll kind of find out what happens next with Bethesda. One interesting thing about this though is that in Microsoft's proposal, it says that they created a new subsidiary by the name of Vault, which will house ZeniMax in its transition to Microsoft. A lot of people are losing their mind over this and what all it means. This is a very different approach than what previous Xbox acquisitions were. Now with that said, Volt will not be the new name of ZeniMax. From my understanding, this is actually a normal way of merging with a company of this size. Essentially what will happen is that ZeniMax will merge with Volt as they transition contracts, and then Volt will ultimately cease to exist, and then ZeniMax will fall directly under Microsoft. It is a bit different than previous acquisitions, but the end goal still seems to be the same. Now with that said, there has been a lot of discussion about publishing arms. It does sound like ZeniMax could continue to be their own publisher, whereas other studios will be handled by Xbox Game Studios. There are still some questions about that, but in the past when Microsoft acquired a studio, they would fall directly under Xbox Game Studios, and that is a publishing arm. With Bethesda though, this is a different acquisition because ZeniMax is a publisher themselves. Now I know that immediately there will be that question, does that mean Bethesda games won't be exclusive to Xbox if ZeniMax uses its own label instead of Xbox Game Studios? And truthfully, I can't answer that because nobody knows other than Microsoft and maybe Bethesda. What you need to know is that Bethesda will answer directly to Phil Spencer, which is the head of gaming at Microsoft. If he says that they will be exclusive, then they will be exclusive to Xbox and PC. He has the ultimate say on that. As always though, we're just going to have to wait until this acquisition is complete and see how they transition into Microsoft. At the very least, it looks like we won't have to wait much longer. On to the poll of the day though. In recent years, Xbox has brought several dormant rare IP back from the dead. This includes Killer Instinct, Battletoads, to an extent Conquer, and now they just announced Perfect Dark, which I'm extremely excited about. What's interesting about all these games is that Rare didn't directly develop any of them. I believe they may have some input, but they were developed under a different studio. So with that in mind, there are still so many Rare games that I think fans would just absolutely love to see. And that's why I asked you, what dormant Rare IP would you like to see Xbox bring back next? And the winner was none other than Banjo-Kazooie, receiving 50% of all of the votes as of this recording, with Conquer coming in at second. So there it is, more evidence that fans want Banjo-Kazooie to return. It's honestly just baffling to me that Xbox hasn't brought this franchise back yet, and if Rare doesn't want to do it, just license it out. You don't even have to make a new game. Make some remakes, and if they do good, then you can make a new game. And don't stop there, bring all of these games back. I mean, Rare has some of the most beloved games ever made, and we're seeing that right now, whether that be with Killer Instinct, Perfect Dark, or Battletoads. There was a lot of buzz around all of these games, and you could do the exact same thing with Conquer, Banjo, Viva Pinatas, Cameo, Jet Force Gemini, and they just need to license more of these games out. And looking through the comments, some of you did have some good ideas. One of you mentioned a Jet Force Gemini game similar to Ratchet & Clank. I never thought about that before, but I do love that idea. Nonetheless, I'm just going to continue to keep my fingers crossed for a Banjo remake at the very least. Xbox, please, 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 make it happen. Anyways though, that's it for this episode, but if you liked the video, don't forget the bell notification and subscribe button for more content just like this. Also, if you'd like to support the channel through Patreon, thank you for making this content possible. Peace out.